Breaking news. What can the media do to speed up the conclusion of the conflict in Ukraine? The conflict in Ukraine is now well into its second year with no signs of ending anytime soon. Some have claimed that media outlets are not doing enough to help end the conflict in Ukraine, despite the overwhelming amount of upsetting news and images coming from the battlefields there. As a journalist who writes about foreign policy and even wars, I have to partially agree when asked to respond to those criticisms. I think there needs to be more depth and context in reporting on the conflict in Ukraine. The media can influence outcomes, but we have the most sway when we report facts accurately regardless of our political leanings. We must begin by reporting the depth of President Putin's and the Russian people's anger over the shame they've endured since the fall of the Soviet Union. When trying to figure out what triggered the war, many different arguments are brought up. Some examples include Putin's irrational behavior and a sense of victimhood in the country as a result of NATO expansion. Some also point the finger at expansionist Slavic ethno-nationalism that sees Russia and Ukraine as inextricably linked due to their shared history. However, the changes in global politics that have occurred since the Cold War's demise are often overlooked. When the Soviet Union fell, Western liberal ideology was widely reported to have triumphed. The world over, people felt a great deal of relief after the end of the Cold War because nuclear war was no longer a real possibility. Russia's military power, natural resources, and industrial capacity, as well as its large stockpile of nuclear weapons, were all ignored as the West began to view it as a lesser power. Even though Putin was seen as merely a disgruntled figure who could be ignored in the West, in Russia a sense of resentment bordering on hatred became entrenched. After Russia unexpectedly annexed Crimea from Ukraine and was kicked out of the G8, I was able to meet and interview Putin in 2014. According to him, the G8 is seen as a forum where major countries come together to discuss and make international rules, but in reality it is just a forum where leaders meet to rubber stamp whatever the United States proposes. Putin expressed his relief at no longer having to serve as Washington's subordinate. The Japanese people have accepted American values and now believe they are the foundation of Japan's post-World War II success, making it difficult for them to understand the Russian leader's simmering anger. People's perceptions of international affairs are shaped by their own set of values. However, people in other countries have their own traditions and norms, so their opinions may differ greatly from ours. One function of international reporting is to provide audiences with fair and balanced access to a variety of perspectives from around the world. That's why coverage of the conflict in Ukraine needs to go deeper. Putin is the primary reason for the war in Ukraine, and he must bear the blame for this inhumane conflict. However, international coverage should expand to include additional factors that prompted Russia to invade. There are those who believe Ukraine should have tried harder to use diplomatic means and make concessions to Russia. Ukrainians don't see that as a viable option when they compare it to Poland's post-Cold War prosperity. Since joining the European Union and NATO, Poland's economy has flourished, and the country is now much wealthier than it was when it was on par with Ukraine's during the Cold War. Ukraine's envious behavior is understandable. They believe that as long as it is seen only as Russia's younger sibling, Ukraine will not be able to develop economically due to Russia's frequent historical interference in Ukrainian domestic affairs. Putin may have failed to realize that Russia's goal in imposing its values on Ukraine is the same as the United States' goal in attempting to subjugate Russia through the G8 forum. Reporting from the front tends to emphasize the plight of ordinary people and to suggest that the countries involved in the conflict must come to an agreement to end the fighting. The suffering of the people on the ground, of course, cannot be disregarded. However, the reporting becomes irresponsible if it serves only to evoke sympathy from the audience. Even though they are currently on the receiving end of aggression, Ukrainians feel they must fight fiercely for the survival of their country. Even if peace were to appear on the surface, if they continued to be treated as a dependency of Russia, real human rights could not be assured, and they would be forced into a position where they had no say in their own fate. When we see pictures of bombed hospitals, pregnant women being carried out on stretchers, and children sobbing, it's easy to conclude that Ukraine should just give up. The victims are fighting and sacrificing so that this will never happen again, and the media should make that clear. Only when there is balanced and thorough reporting will readers be able to form their own opinions and assess the war for themselves. Reporting that doesn't solely focus on the violence of war, known as peace journalism, has gained traction in recent years. I pray that the news coverage will help bring about reconciliation. Reporters should always keep in mind that their work is for the greater good of maintaining peace. However, a peace that lacks substance will be delivered by journalism that fails to convey the motivation of the Ukrainian people's fight and instead argues for surrender and superficial solutions. Constructive journalism, which not only reports the facts but also suggests solutions, is another term we hear frequently. Given the magnitude of the world's issues, positive news coverage certainly has its appeal. Finding a solution is challenging for anyone. Who gets to decide what the right solution is, and how it gets done? Although it will take time, solutions may emerge if we all think for ourselves, form our own opinions, make our voices heard, and take initiative. While I agree that the media is not a quick fix, I do believe that it plays a crucial role in providing the public with accurate information that can serve as the basis for more well-informed decisions.